The most powerful divine system was up and running. She congratulated the host on another top-up. With virtual currency, the host's balance amounted to cosmic numbers. The host woke up in a terrible state. She started to get out of bed and put on her slippers. His name was Lin Yu, and it had been over 3 years since he had been resurrected. He had closed his balance. The moment he was resurrected, he had gotten his system. The protagonist was washing his face in the bathroom and thinking about how incredibly lucky he was. He had trillions of money in his account that he could only use after his death. The biggest problem was that the protagonist didn't want to die again. Suddenly, everything around him was covered in blood, and the protagonist looked at the mirror, which was also covered in blood. On the mirror was written that the hero will be one of the first in the horror game. The guy didn't understand what was going on at all. The protagonist realized that it wasn't his system, as it was appearing right in his head. The guy touched his finger to the mirror, and felt as if death itself announced a hunt for him. The smell was very familiar to the protagonist. Creepy, bloody. It was the smell of death. The protagonist learned that at midnight he would be moved into the game. Also, he was not the first. He started Googling for information on what it was. He couldn't seem to find anything, but at one point something seemed to be found. Many mysterious things were happening because of the players who had returned. A center had been set up to deal with the aftermath. Those who were chosen would enter the evil spirit world and be killed if they broke the rules of the quests. It was written that in each quest at least half of the people died. But the survivors could control the souls of the dead people. Whether the hero survived or died would depend only on him. The protagonist thought that getting a beta test was better than having monsters invade their world. The chances of the hero surviving were huge. He made the most interested face and made a decision to survive and become stronger no matter what. The clock was ticking, and very soon it should be midnight. The protagonist did his best to prepare himself for what was to come. The time struck midnight, and the guy was enveloped by a bright red light. The guy started to fail, and he was welcomed into the game. He was given the quest hotel of the afterlife, where he had to work and survive for 2 days. Total survivors in this quest people 6 jokes. The guy finally arrived at the location. He immediately started looking around and saw the very same afterlife inn. He headed there and saw people just like him who had been summoned to this world. Some of them didn't seem to be worried at all. Some of them were serious. But one girl was very worried and didn't seem to know anything. The other players were discussing the game, and the hero was watching. One man was upset that everyone around him appeared to be new to the game. One girl came up before him, since if it wasn't his first time here, he could help her. The man said that he had been through the game more than once. Everyone was thrilled with the news. The man yelled at the guys and told them how terrible the game was. He showed his scars. The girls immediately got excited and were scared. The hero came forward and started talking to the man, namely asking about his experience of the game. The man immediately noticed the interesting hero. He was sure that with such thinking the guy will definitely complete the quest. The man explained that the ghosts here will not kill for nothing. He explained that the ghosts kill only if the player broke the rules. He also said that the basic rules will be prompted to the players in a very direct form. The protagonist immediately thought about the fact that he knew this. Also, he assumed that maybe other players should be sacrificed. The doors started to open. All the players immediately looked in that direction. An old man came out of there, who was laughing very creepily. He greeted the guys at work at the Afterlife Inn. The old man introduced himself as an accountant and said that he came out to distribute tasks to the players on the orders of the owner. The protagonist and everyone else noticed the old man's incredibly cold breath. The old man informed that before starting work, he would tell a few rules. The protagonist knew that these were the very rules that the players would die if they broke. The old man began to tell that the guys must do their job well, because otherwise the head will not spare the players. The hero thought about everything. He thought that the accountant is afraid of the mistress, but she will not attack him because he is her subordinate. The old man said that if the guys broke something, they would have to pay for it. The third rule was to always obey the customers. Even if the customer is wrong may be lucky, but if the customer wants to pick on the players will not save anyone. He asked if the guys had any other questions. All were silent, and he said it was time to give them the job. He pointed to a big man and said he would help the cook cut vegetables. He walked past the hero without showing any emotion. The man looked at the guy and mentally asked him to take care of himself. The old man was looking at the other players. He approached the girls and told them they were responsible for cleaning up and gave instructions on how and where to get the tools. The old man approached the guy in the suit and said that he would reconcile the accounts. Only the main character and the girl were left standing. The old man said that these two people were like dolls with beautiful flesh. He told the guys to go to the living room and take customers as waiters. The old man pointed the way and really hoped that the dolls knew how to behave and would not break the rules. The girl was terrified and trembling. The guy took her by the hand and began to drag her to the place, as he supposed that it could not be delayed. They crossed the threshold of the creepy building. While the girl was looking around, the hero was silently walking. She thanked the guy for helping and introduced herself as Lee. The protagonist said that he would call her Lee, but she should call him Lin. He suspected that you cannot call your full name from the words of the big man. The girl thanked Brother Lin again, and they opened the passage. There was a large enough space waiting for them. They looked around a bit, and the girl asked what they should do next. The protagonist said that they should wait for the meeting with the guests, thinking that from now on every action decides life or death. Suddenly the hero's coolness came to an end as he saw a huge monster. It made terrible sounds and shocked the hero. The monster was salivating and was immensely happy that there were living people in this place. The protagonist did not know what to say. He was normal, so scared. The guy pulled himself together and, pointing to the table, asked the gentleman to pass. The monster's face changed. He started to move, saying that he didn't know it was the waiters and thought he could have a good meal. The protagonist in his thoughts appreciated the game. The monster shut the table, the sound of which frightened the hero and his companion. The guy was very glad that nothing broke, because it would have been their fault. The monster held out 2 coins and demanded a pot of hot water and some plates. The boy bowed and said okay. The hero looked at the coins and realized they were copper. He moved on, thinking that the cutlery was very strange, as if alive. The girl wanted to help, but the hero stopped her at the last moment. The protagonist said that the teapot was heavy, so it was better for him to take it, as he should not upset the guests with it. There were horrible screams of the object pleading to kill him, and that he was hot. The kettle began to splash boiling water, and one of the drops hit the protagonist's hand, causing him to let go of the object and be horrified, as it was very bad. The kettle shattered to pieces, and the hero along with the girl stood looking at this. She suggested the hero hide the teapot. He thought about the girl wanting to throw everything away. The hero said that wouldn't work. An old man appeared behind their backs. He called the hero fussy, since he broke the teapot on the first day. The old man said that the value of the kettle is 50 pieces, but he immediately attacked the hero because he knew that he had no money. The old man decided to take his hand as payment. The girl was horrified and started screaming, at which time the protagonist said screw it and noted he could pay. The protagonist withdrew 50,000 nimbus from the system in coins. The protagonist was covered in an aura that surprised even the old man beyond belief. The hero exuded a terrifying aura, and the old man seemed to realize something. He instantly stopped moving as he felt a pure energy, yes, not only stronger than his own, even stronger than the mistress. The protagonist raised his hand, on which coins appeared. The protagonist threw a bundle of coins and said that this should be enough to compensate. the coins fell, and the old man was shocked that a man could do such a thing. What surprised him the most was the amount of money. For that money you could sell his life. Anyone would be willing to kill him for that amount of money. He thought that maybe even the landlady could be forced to kill him for that amount of money. The old man decided that the hero was definitely not a newcomer. The girl was thinking about how incredible the guy was for shaking this spirit. The protagonist was sure that even the monster will idolize him seeing the money from the system. The hero was very happy because the old man was only scared by 50,000 pieces, and he had more than 1 trillion of such currency in his account. The hero decided that without breaking the rules the old man couldn't kill or punish someone. The protagonist grabbed a strand of money and held it out to the old man, saying that he should take it while it was given. The old man had never seen such a huge amount of money and didn't know how to act. The protagonist said that let him take and remembered about his tasks with the system, namely to spend 100,000 as a reward. He could get a cashback card and 10 cleared wines of hell. Due to the fact that the cost of the hair was 100 minbi, and the system does not count what is 100 times more to spend, was counted only 10,000. The hero was sure that in this world rules decide everything, and he should have no problems with money. The protagonist took the plate and asked how much it cost. The old man replied that 100 won, and the protagonist pretended to accidentally let it go. It shattered and started making sounds. The girl watching was horrified, and the old man was also very surprised. The protagonist gave the old man money, saying that he would like to make friends with others in the hotel. The guy thought it was a great opportunity, seeing how the old man reacted to the money. The spirit said he couldn't be a friend, but if he needed help in the future, he would be there for him. The hero said he understood and advised the old man to put the money away. The guy headed to the next dish. Suddenly the hero heard a voice that advised him to stop breaking the rules. The old man recognized this voice. It was the landlady. The hero noticed that the voice was not creepy at all. Parquet assumed that it was because of money, and was upset that it would not work like that anymore. He took the teapot and came to the place apologizing for keeping the monster waiting. The protagonist put the kettle down and was ready to pay if the monster was not satisfied. He made a pliant face and said it was all right. The protagonist and the girl and the old man were shocked by this behavior. The monster thought that the hero is strong, because he is very rich and can create things out of thin air. A smirk appeared on the guy's face. The hero approached the monster and said that he would pay for his lunch in honor of his apology. The spirit was happy for the free lunch. The protagonist said to order whatever was on the menu. He would pay for everything. The monster asked for one of each item on the menu. The protagonist was happy to be able to spend the money. The old man said that this would have to be reported to the kitchen. The hero smiled very frighteningly, which scared the monster. He shouted that it was time for them to start work and said that they needed 2 of each dish more expensive than 31. The old man smiled and said it was 830 won, and he could draw 0. The protagonist laughed and said let it be 1,000. The guy thought that the amount was only 60,000 currency at the moment, and that was not enough. The girl turned to the protagonist, who was thinking about his own. Suddenly the guy got an idea and turned to the girl because he had a request. As a result, the girl stood outside the institution, while inside there was a real feast, at which the monsters were discussing something fiercely. The headless monster says that thanks to the hero, he can get the essence. One of the monsters suggested that the hero is a representative of the Ghost King and spends so much money to glorify his name. The monster girls wondered if the hero was married, while the guy himself was sitting around with others having fun. The hero said that the girl did a great job and asked the accountant for more. The hero said he would leave the money on the counter. The protagonist was finally able to complete the task of spending the money. The inventory appeared in the system, and a little later the soul-cleansing wine was displayed there. The hero decided to use this wine now, and become the ultimate ghost lord. The strongest aroma resounded throughout the establishment. It was the very wine that the hero had received. The monsters were incredibly surprised at the greatness of the hero, since he possesses such an amazing thing. The guy smiled and stepped forward. He shouted that he was about to drink to all the guys in the establishment. He started drinking the wine very quickly, and the protagonist immediately felt a clear and cold aura. The protagonist gained +10 to spiritual awareness, and +100 to spiritual power. Now the protagonist could see his characteristics, and became a ghost lord. The protagonist received a second task, namely to spend 30,000 currency at one time. The reward was a contract for a ghost lord of perfect level 5 pieces. The hero was sure that the contract would give him a lot of power, and was determined to complete the task. The monsters were having fun and drinking alcohol. He looked at the monster who thought the hero was a great lord with great power, and a scarred soul. The monster decided to repay the hero, and stood up saying that Lin now becomes his brother. The monster held out a yin tool, and said that it was his gift for Lin's brother. He explained that the mirror could show ghostly creatures and yin energy gathering points in the neighborhood. The protagonist thought the mirror was very strange. The system notified that this thing was just attached to the protagonist. The monster said he couldn't recognize the true effects of the item, and hoped it would be more useful in the hero's hands. The protagonist said that the thing would be of real use to him. The monster was shocked that the guy so quickly learned the true essence of the item. The protagonist decided to shove it into his inventory. The monsters were really terrified that the hero has a spatial treasure. They thought that he came from some dangerous place, and all together the monsters decided to flatter the hero, and all sorts of kneeling before him. The hero was approached by another monster, who said that he also has a treasure for the protagonist. The guy said no need to be so polite, and asked what the old man had. He provided a necklace of the skull of enmity, which protected against spiritual attacks, and it could be charged with energy and released at one moment to counter-attack. The monster handing it over said that although the hero might not need it, it could go as a piece of jewelry. Odorel recognized the protagonist as the master, and although it was of a lower quality than the mirror, it was much more useful in terms of attack and defense. Many other monsters didn't know what to offer, so they gave some of their primal energy to the vault of the hero's Odorel. The necklace began to absorb the gifted power, and the hero immediately felt a surge of strength. The boy thanked the spirits for their kindness, and they were incredibly happy to please the hero. The girl watching this said that the monsters flattered more than her father's subordinates. Time passed. The place was already closed. The old man thanked the hero, because thanks to him, the turnover increased by 5 times compared to other days. The protagonist realized why the ghost had left the place so quickly, because it was no longer safe for them outside. The hostess announced that the shift was over and everyone should gather for dinner. For the hero and his companion, it was time to meet the other ghosts of the inn. The guy hoped that they are just as hungry for money. Bloody spots started to appear, which really surprised the hero and his companion. It said that there are 4 people alive in the current survival. The guys were surprised at such a low survival rate. The hero settled and started to think over some things. The quest turned out to be too dangerous, and if it wasn't for his money, he would have lost his arm. The guy was glad that now he had an item for self-defense. The old man explained that a little later they would all have lunch together, as it was a tradition of their establishment. A voice was heard behind the old man's back, asking why he was being so respectful to the new runner. It was a huge woman dragging one of the players behind her. The girl was terrified, as another guy had been sent to this monster and never came back. The girl started yelling at the guys, as she assumed they were doing nothing. She looked at them with an angry and frightened look at the same time. The protagonist thought that if he didn't have spiritual vision, he wouldn't have been able to recognize the jealousy in this woman's heart. The guy was sure that with the girl's abilities, she shouldn't be able to harm him. The old man and the woman's monster argued, and the hero realized that everything was not so harmonious. The old man said that the woman knows nothing, and he, unlike her, does not torture his subordinates. The girl pointed at the hero and ordered him to get off the table. The girl decided to punish the guy herself since the old man does not do it, and attacked the hero. The girl smiled happily, as the hero would now suffer the same. At that time, the woman's blow was easily blocked by the amulet. The hero's amulet began to emit a frightening aura, and the monster felt and feared it, so she stepped back for fear of a counterattack. The protagonist thought about how pathetic this spirit was since its power wasn't even at the level of the transparent general. The girl was startled and thought that the guy was relying on a middle-grade weapon. She sat down at the table with the rest of the guys. The woman stared at the hero with an evil gaze, but the protagonist realized that she had a grudge against him, and as soon as she had the chance, she would kill him. The protagonist realized that he needed to get rid of her, because if others find out that he is not so strong, they can simply kill him. The protagonist had to figure out a way to get rid of the ghost as soon as possible. At that time there was another ghost, and absolutely everyone felt its power. He went inside exuding a horrible aura. The other ghosts bowed down. The protagonist assumed it was the cook, and that he was much stronger than the woman. The huge ghost ordered the man to place a pot of food on the table. The player obediently complied with this order, and he seemed to have lost an arm. The protagonist noticed this immediately, and was a little embarrassed. The big ghost lifted the lid of the dish, and said that dinner was served. Inside this casserole floated bones and eyes. One of the girls took an eye with chopsticks, and disgust was evident on her face. The other girl took the glasses that were in the casserole, and everyone began to have thoughts. The big ghost assumed that the girl didn't like his cooking, but so said it was fine. The ghost said if that's the case, let her eat. The protagonist told the player to sit next to him. At that time a huge ghost opened Enkayutoito Butika. The hero realized that if you doubt the cooking abilities of this spirit, he will definitely want to kill. The plate was screaming from the wine poured by this man. He took it and drank it in a volley. He continued to sip the wine without even breathing. When he finished he exhaled heavily. The big ghost noticed something. He pointed at the protagonist and asked why he wasn't eating. He assumed the guy didn't like his cooking. He made a terribly serious face, and asked if the hero liked his cooking. At that time the hero got up from his seat and held out a bowl. He said that the ghost's drink wasn't good and suggested that it wasn't good to drink. He spilled the wine inside the bowl. Seeing such a big ghost froze in place, while the female ghost tasted the imminent death of the protagonist. The girl thought that the hero had some kind of plan. At that time, the huge ghost was angry and asked why provoke him. At that time he started to smell a very pleasant aroma. The protagonist took out a soul-cleansing wine which made the huge ghost very interested. The protagonist started talking about how the ghost has great cooking skills, but tasting skills are even better, so he couldn't watch the ghost drink that wine. The hero offered him a taste of the wine he was offering. When it was poured into the mug, the one was giddy with happiness. The man thought that if this was a way to piss him off he would kill the hero, but he decided to give it a try nonetheless. He sat down and got ready to start tasting. He began to drink the wine, pouring it straight into himself, and instantly felt the heavenly overlay of its flavor. He felt magical under the influence of this wine. He had a feeling that it was only because of the wine that he was getting stronger. He put the bowl on the table and said that the wine was excellent. The protagonist was happy that his plan had worked. The protagonist began to pour another bowl, calling the ghost Prats. The lid was again very happy to have such a drink inside her. The man, on the other hand, was looking at this wine with his eyes wide open. This time he shook it off a bit and embarrassed said that the wine was just fine. The protagonist now knew that this wine was very effective. He tied another bottle and showed it to the man, who was surprised by it. The protagonist asked if he could fill his new friend's mug, and the man said he would be incredibly grateful. Seeing such a picture, the others were just shocked. The old man and the woman were incredibly surprised that the man called the hero a brother. The woman thought that the hero in any case must meet his doom in this place. The protagonist refilled the remains and said he was sorry. The man didn't understand why, because the guy's wine was excellent. The protagonist said that it is a pity that it is impossible to fully enjoy the wine, because there are no appetizers. The man said that the hero should not be upset. He is after all a cook. Now he will quickly prepare appetizers, and there will be no trace of pity. The hero said that the man's cooking skills are top-notch, but the problem is the spoiled food. Looking at the ghost woman, he said that it's all because of the ghost chi. The guy wrinkled his face and said that cooking together with ghosts is disgusting. The man began to think deeply about these words, and when he realized, he put his hand on the hero's shoulder and said that he wished he had met him sooner. The man looked carefully at the ghost girl, who was very frightened. She got up from her seat and said that she did not offend the man, and they cannot break the rules. The protagonist thought about what the girl said. At that time, an old man intervened and said that the woman had recently attacked the man's brother. The old man began to say that she had attacked his employee and violated the rules of the hotel. She tried to attack the old man, but a knife flew in her direction at great speed, which punched the ghost woman right to the wall. The woman said that even he couldn't do such a blue thing. The man approached her and said that she had broken a rule and should be fully punished. Praising the old man and saying how well he works, he took up a thrown knife. She began to shout to ask to stop, but the man did what was necessary and struck a blow, from which the woman ghost fell to her knees, and later completely breathless fell to the ground. The protagonist didn't expect his new buddy to kill her in just a few seconds. The man said he went to get the ingredients and asked the protagonist to save the wine for him. The protagonist was glad that the cook turned out to be very strong. However, the hero had unpleasant thoughts from the old man checking him out. The guy's gaze made the old man nervous, and there was a silent pause between them, in which the old man felt most uncomfortable. The protagonist took out something from the inventory and decided to toast the old man's help. He thought about punishing him and setting an example for others. The old man realized that the hero would want to tell the cook that he drank all the wine, and was terrified. The old man began to think how to avoid drinking the wine, and had an idea, namely to offer the hero a treasure. He looked at the hero and assumed that even though he was rich, he didn't mind taking gifts from others. He began to historically search for the treasure, and after a short period of time, he retrieved an item from his early years. The protagonist was interested. He felt the old man's fear of him. The old man explained that it was a high-quality material for creating weapons. It cost a little less than a high-quality weapon. The system confirmed the old man's words, that it was a high-quality material. The protagonist decided to do a quest to spend money at the same time. The guy asked how much the old man wanted to sell the material for. The ghost started to say that he couldn't ask for money for a gift. The protagonist started to pressure the old man, saying that he was a simple man and wouldn't take it for free. The old man assumed that this was the hero's rule. Everyone in this world has their own rules that can't be broken, and asking about them directly is rude. The old man asked what price the guy wanted to offer, and the guy started pulling out a huge amount of coins. The old man was covered with a huge amount of coins. The old man began to cry with happiness. This money was a chance for him, because the amount was really cosmic. Now the old man would be able to cancel the sales contract with the owner now. The old man fell on his knees and started tearfully thanking the protagonist for his generosity. He started hysterically hitting the floor thanks to the guy, to which everyone was very surprised. The girl thought about how genderless the guy was, while the man was surprised that the newcomer was able to make the strong ghost bow down. He even assumed that the hero was one of the legendary family of exorcists. The protagonist received his reward. The contract gave him the right to control the ghosts. The protagonist read the details and was very surprised. It was more like a slave contract. The old man tearfully thanked the guy crawling at his feet. The protagonist didn't want to waste such a useful thing on him. The protagonist kicked the old man with his foot, throwing him off. The cook returned to his seat and said that he had already finished cooking the ghost dish. There was a very appetizing dish on the table. The cook said it was the first time he had cooked something like this and asked his brother to try it. The protagonist appreciated the skills of the chef while looking at the dish, but when he tasted it, the spiritual power increased by 1 unit, which pleased the hero. The guy was happy that even in this way, he was able to increase his spiritual power. The protagonist began to praise the dish, saying that it was perfect. The man was very happy that his brother liked it. The protagonist offered them a drink. They drank delicious wine and ate delicious food while others stood and watched. The main character ate the food very appetizingly, as he was getting a lot of spiritual power for it. After a little while, all the plates that were on the table were already empty. After the protagonist ate, his spiritual power reached 197. At that time, the man got drunk and talked about how good the wine was. The protagonist was glad that the biggest threat was now his friend. The voice of the mistress was heard saying that the meal time was over. She ordered the old man to take the boys to their chambers, and the man, with his trademark face, said he would do as ordered. The man said he was sorry to see them in for the day. They said goodbye to each other, and the hero realized that the man did not treat the hostess the same way as the old man. At that time, the old man ordered other people to clear the table. Unexpectedly for the hero, the mistress invited him to the 3rd floor for a meeting. He did not realize how the mistress had given him the message. The guy started to climb the stairs. At the same time, he thought about what was waiting for him. He knew that he had attracted the attention of the mistress with his money. The boy arrived before the entrance to the mistress' chambers. Suddenly the door opened, and from there, he could see the girl sitting on the couch. She was beautifully dressed and watched the hero carefully. The guy thought about the fact that the person in front of him was the owner of the hotel. The protagonist exhaled and headed towards her, hoping for the rule that if he didn't break anything he couldn't be killed on the spot. The protagonist said hello and asked what she wanted from him. The girl apologized for the guy accidentally being sent to work as a waiter. The protagonist was surprised that the mistress apologized to him. The protagonist replied that it was no big deal and advised the girl to just enjoy life. The girl said that the protagonist's money was bad for her hotel, and he promised to pay for everything tenfold. The girl said that it's small things and told about the murdered ghost woman who worked in this place for 100 years. The protagonist tried to pretend he had nothing to do with it and talked about being a newbie. The girl got angry and broke the shelf, saying she wouldn't get into an altercation with the protagonist. She also warned that people who provoke her employees to a fight will not go unpunished. The protagonist felt terribly cold and asked what the lady wanted to say. The girl told how much this employee had done, and in the end the protagonist had to pay damages for her murder. The guy asked what amount was appropriate. The girl first said 3, but then, with a confident voice, she said the amount was 50 guanai. The protagonist was disappointed at such a low cost. He made a serious look and used the cashback card. A huge amount of coins sprinkled from the sky. The girl was simply delighted, and the protagonist asked how the hostess looked at the fact that the cook from now on worked with him. The girl was shocked by such a statement. She thought about how rich this guy is since he wants to buy her cook. The protagonist thought that the ghosts were just a tool in the hands of the girl, and the cook was not very happy about it. The protagonist thought that making a contract with the chef was the best option for him. The girl began to think about the hero's proposal and to consider the price. The girl said that the man had been with her for many years, and the border would be difficult without the cook. She started demanding that the protagonist add money. The protagonist raised his hand and cashed another $1,000,000, which the girl was incredibly surprised. The hero asked if the girl was satisfied with this amount. She lit up with the money and said she was fine with it. She started pulling out some paper from her chest and threw it right at the hero. The guy caught the object flying at him. The guy got a chef's contract. He noticed that he would never have left here despite the amount of money he had to pay. The hero mentally praised the girl for a great contract. The girl said that all the hero had to do was to destroy the contract and then the cook would be free, but she didn't give a guarantee of what he would do next. The hero told the girl not to worry, he had plans for the cook. The protagonist turned to the girl and asked how much the girl would ask for a contract with her, or for the whole hotel. She remained silent, seemingly thinking about something. She kept thinking about it, and eventually said that she and the hotel were not for sale. The protagonist realized that money isn't everything in this place after all, and said that he wouldn't poke the girl anymore. He started to leave her quarters. She was upset that the guy wouldn't even insist. The girl had a feeling that she would see her heroes soon. The guy opened the door to the inside of the bedroom. There were other players sitting there who immediately took notice of him. The girl was happy to see the guy, while the other was afraid of the hero, because she saw him as a danger no less than the ghosts. The guy told the guys that he had made some deals with the owner of the hotel. The guys were shocked that the man managed to charm the landlady. The man knew that the hero was a newcomer. He directly asked if he belonged to the Yuletide family. The protagonist sat down before the guys and said that it was a series of ordinary accidents. The man had only heard of people like the protagonist on the forum before. The protagonist assumed that there was a forum for communication between players, and it was a correct assumption. The man said that was exactly what he was going to tell. He asked if the guys knew about the new investigation center. The girl said she had seen the news and asked if it was true that they had started investigating the game. The man explained that they could call them and get help from the center. The only thing the state needed in return was the whole truth about what the guys had seen and done. This could be called outside employee status. The man explained that he was one of those employees and told them that when the boys got stronger from the status would change. The girl seemed happy about such news. The protagonist returned the cards asking if they now had to participate regularly in the games. The man said that they do and that the draft is every 2 weeks, but you can get in earlier if you pay money. The protagonist asked if there is really access to other players on the forum, and the man confirmed this by saying that it is an anonymous chat room. The man explained that no one has to remember the players they see. It's a rule, that's why the forum is anonymous. The protagonist understood and remembered this information. The man asked if there were any other questions. Everyone went to their beds, and the man said good night. The protagonist in the meantime called up the system. The protagonist used a cashback card that returned him 5 times more than he spent, namely 10 million. The next task was to buy that item exceeding the price of 100,000 and get profit more than 5 times. The python cackled, the morning came. The protagonist woke up and thought of another day in the ghost world. The protagonist was mystified that he had become a ghost lord since he had stayed up all night, but didn't feel tired. The protagonist was thinking about what he had already accomplished. At that time, the others woke up, and they didn't have their faces on them from fatigue. The protagonist noticed that the others were not exactly optimistic. The protagonist opened the doors where an old man was already waiting for him, who greeted Mr. Lin with a sweet voice. The protagonist asked the location of the cook, and he was logically in the kitchen. The hero went to the kitchen, and the old man wanted to say something about the work of the hero, but he thought about it and realized that the hero does not need to follow this rule at all. At that time, the old man yelled at the others and said that it was time to get to work. The man stood there and did not hear the old man's shouts. He only admired the main character, who in his opinion was from an influential family. At that time, the guy had already arrived in the kitchen. The cook showed his masterpiece broth and told his friend to try it. He looks very scary, and the hero said he came for business. The man asked what the business was. The protagonist asked if his friend was working at the end of his own free will. Such a question seemed to hurt the man, and he was quiet for a while. He gave a sad look and admitted that he could not hide anything from his friend. He said that he had once been an important figure in the world of ghosts, but he had been attacked, was on the verge of death, and had no choice but to sign a contract. He said that at least he had time to heal. The mistress was not simple. The man was upset that for him, there is no more big world where he could taste a huge number of delicacies. The protagonist asked if he would give him a chance. Would the cook follow him across 2 worlds? The man said that the mistress would not let him go. At that time, the protagonist showed the man's contract, which he had bought from the landlady. The cook was very surprised, and could not understand how his friend had managed. The protagonist explained that he just had the money. The protagonist said he couldn't promise freedom without danger. The cook was shocked that his contract had just been torn up, with the hero promising that if the man followed him, they would have a measure of wine. The man said that since they were friends, he was happy to be there for the guy. He said that the most important thing was not the wine and food, but the time spent with his brother. After these words, he signed the contract. The hero took the paper and received a system notification that the contract had been signed, and the system offered to see the characteristics of the cook. The friend had a spiritual consciousness of 2,500, and the spiritual power in him was 36,900. He had supreme weapons and strong skills. The protagonist was surprised at such strength. If they were not protected by the rules, neither of them would have survived. The protagonist was glad that he now had a strong comrade. The cook knelt in front of the hero and said he would follow his master. The hero said not to be so formal and offered to have a drink together. They had fun drinking wine together. At that time, the number of survivors was announced, which was dwindling, and now there were 3 left. The protagonist thought about the fact that after he made the contract he easily passed the quest. Yes, and the other 2 survived, but the other girl was torn when she encountered the guest. The protagonist thought about the fact that even now, he could not be called invulnerable. The guy was determined to become as strong as possible since the game opens every 2 weeks. He started to leave the hotel, and someone shouted his name in his back. He turned around to see who it was. It turned out to be a girl who ran out after him. She had a very nice look on her face. She thanked the guy for helping her on the first day, and after the hero accepted her thanks, she shoved a piece of paper into his hands. The protagonist began to examine it. The girl explained that she was from a powerful family, and if the hero needed help in the real world, he could call her. A notification popped up that the players were congratulated on completing the quest. The quest was completed, and the world began to fall apart. The hero instantly found himself back in his room. The guy was looking at the piece of paper with the phone number on it, and decided to check something out. He put it on the table and looked at the clock. Although in the game 2 days had passed, in reality was only a second. The protagonist turned to his spirit. He asked what the gentleman wanted, and the protagonist said nothing. The man was pouring wine. The protagonist was happy, as the contract is stable. Things work the same and everything is fine even in reality. The protagonist thought about the fact that there are evil ghost hunters who end up nightmarishing ordinary people. The guy decided that the world is not a safe place at all now. The protagonist remembered that they would be pulled into the game every 2 weeks. The protagonist had a lot of secrets, so he wouldn't go to the department. At most he would find the information he needed on the forum. The protagonist started spoofing his IP address. He started logging into the forum. The protagonist looked at the ads that were not too interesting, but suddenly the hero saw serious rules for the real world, namely do not use force against ordinary people, and do not tell about the game. The guy was now interested in the question of how he could protect himself. This game exists in a huge world of ghosts where countless spirits, they can kill people only by the rules. Ghosts are made into 7 classes depending on their strength, and humans have 9 ranks of strength. The protagonist was glad that his contract ignored the difference in levels, and he got a strong ghost. The protagonist with form found out that there are already over 100,000 players from all over the world. Some were lucky and found the wine, after which they could become lords. The protagonist thought about the fact that he had very little wine left. The protagonist saw that there was a trading ground for supplies on the forum. The protagonist saw an ad for offline trading. The protagonist was surprised to see that there would be a fair soon. The protagonist decided to register as well and started to think of a name for himself. He decided to introduce himself as Emperor Fengdu. When morning came, the system congratulated the protagonist with a reward of 645,2000 minbi. The protagonist opened the system, and looking at what he has said that this is real wealth. The protagonist went to the fair with his suitcase. On Monday, he received a personal message. On Thursday, he started packing, and in the evening, he was on his way to the place. The whole fair was to be held in an abandoned factory. A huge number of people started to pass there. The hero appreciated the safety of the place. The mask did not let him recognize people, and the badge was protected from forgery. One of the players praised the ghosts at the entrance, but the hero thought that his cook was much stronger. The hero was checked and told that if he wanted to sell an item, he had to go to the evaluation room first. At that time, some people were sitting behind a very modern appliance. The protagonist appraised the apparatus to appraise things. Another player assumed that the protagonist was here for the first time. He told that it was the only item that was capable of evaluating other items. He told that it was accurate enough so the hero would not be fooled. The protagonist realized that the power of the early players was much higher than he had assumed. Now he only had to hope that the fair would be of much use. At that time, the apparatus for evaluating the quality of an item was working at full capacity. He had evaluated one of the players' item for an weapon of the lowest first grade, which was lucky. The man explained to the protagonist that even inferior weapons could be worth more than 100,000, and that surprised the guy. The protagonist got worried about his mid-grade weapon and hid it just in case. The next person got an appraisal of such a gun material. The second person, on the other hand, got a terrible grade as all the energy had gone out of the necklace. The protagonist appreciated the expert's look, which was completely in line with the system. The protagonist let the man pass forward and hoped to see an evaluation of something worthwhile himself. The man put some paper on the evaluation table. When the machine started its work, he started praying that his weapon would be of medium rank. The machine began to make a strange sound, and no one understood. An appraiser looked at the thing and didn't understand, as it wasn't a weapon or material, while another noticed that it had a strange pure energy. The third appraiser said that they could not appraise this item, and the man himself could put a price on it. After saying that, the man was very upset and started to leave. The protagonist asked the man not to be upset, and said that he would definitely meet his buyer. When the protagonist looked at this thing in the system, a window popped up saying that it had detected the top quality energy of the pharaoh's ominous blindfold. The protagonist was surprised, but he was interrupted by the voice of an appraiser who asked what the guy wanted to appraise. He decided to ask for one coin from the system since he didn't want to stick his neck out to begin with. The protagonist placed the coin on the grading table. The machine began its evaluation. The man explained that if there were 100 coins, they would be in the lowest grade. The other evaluator stopped his partner. He said that the coin had such pure energy that it had no impurities at all. He started looking at the coin and realized that it was being used as currency among the ghosts. The coin changed hands, and the appraiser said that the montage was just in better quality. He started talking about how there is a hidden rule, and that is without these coins you can't make any trade in the spirit world. And with the help of these coins you can trade in the spirit world. The appraiser assumed that the guy is not an ordinary person, as ghosts do not give such things to just anyone. Seeing the hero's name, Emperor Fengdu, he thought between being a newcomer and being a hidden lone player. The appraiser asked where the hero got this coin from. He answered very briefly, namely that it was a trophy. The man said that it was very interesting. He offered the protagonist 1,500 yuan and friendship. The protagonist started to think that he could sell 1,000,000 of these coins, and thought he was rich. The other man started to get angry with his partner. He explained that because of the amount of energy this coin could be worth 3,000 apiece. The protagonist said he had a few more coins with him, and asked if the appraisers could afford them. They said that they could buy any number of coins anyway. The protagonist only smiled after hearing such words. He opened his bag, from which a huge number of such coins sprinkled. All the appraisers were just shocked by the guy's wealth. One of the people said that he will contact the lady immediately. One of the appraisers said that the forum would not take it all at once, and personally offered to pay 4,000 for each coin. The people who were watching this immediately became interested. They ran in droves in that direction, offering more money. People started begging to sell them these coins, and were ready to pay any amount. At that time, the man really hoped that the hero would not hold a grudge against him. At that time, the guy was very happy with his wealth system. The protagonist was thinking that there are things more important than money. He was thinking about who to sell to, and how much to sell to maximize the profit. Suddenly someone shouted for everyone to shut up. A beautiful girl appeared and everyone listened. The appraiser bowed to his mistress, while the hero stood bewildered. This girl turned out to be Madame Bai Yi herself, the one who had organized the fair. The hero pondered about one of the founders of the forum and her possible power. The protagonist said hello to the girl, but she walked past him and went straight to the coins. The girl said that the coins were of excellent quality, and it was a bit wasteful to sell them here. The hero explained that he had some business to take care of, and that's why he was short of money. The girl said that she would buy one coin for 7.5 million. She also said that she wanted to be friends with the guy. All the people began to whisper, because the event that was happening before their eyes was truly legendary. The girl herself was one of the strongest players. You could say that friendship with her is like a life talisman. The protagonist said that he liked it, and the girl really turned out to be like a goddess, and began to summon coins. The girl started to summon a spirit dove. After it appeared in his mouth was a suitcase, which the toad on the orders of the mistress threw directly at the hero. The guy thought it might be some kind of test, so he summoned the cook. The men were shocked as the cook's strength was on par with, or perhaps even higher than, the toad summoned by the mistress. One of the men was surprised at how simple this event had just happened. The cook asked the protagonist to check the money that was in the suitcase. After a little while the suitcase was closed, and the guy went to the girl with the coins. He called it a good deal. The girl took the coins, and looking intently at the hero put them in the toad's mouth. Finally the girl said that she and the hero will see each other again. All the people were shocked by what had just happened. It was announced to the people that it was now that the offline fair was finally open. Bright lights started to appear around, and suddenly tables with chairs appeared in those places. One man approached the protagonist to ask to buy coins. The guy replied that everything was sold out, and he wouldn't waste any more of his time. The protagonist walked between the rows of people selling their stuff. He was determined to buy some good stuff. The protagonist would walk up to the people, and the system would give him a full appraisal of the item, and he would decide to leave. The protagonist had already realized that most things without a certificate were trash, but he knew he could find something worthwhile. The system told him that it had detected a good mid-grade weapon. The hero immediately turned around since this weapon had a class like his necklace. He looked at the black wooden cube that the strange man was selling. The guy took the thing in his hands and asked his price. The man explained that he thought the thing was useless and said he would sell it for 2,000. The protagonist immediately agreed, and the man glowed with joy, even though he had just sold it for nothing. Now this weapon was tied up to the protagonist, and now his defense and attacks were not tied to just one item. The protagonist kept buying cool stuff for little cost. In the very corner, he saw a familiar man and decided to approach him. He immediately said hello to the hero. The guy looked at the man's goods and said that he had a lot of good stuff. The man said it was a bunch of junk and he would sell it for cheap. The protagonist took the very thing they couldn't appraise and asked the value. The man made a serious look and said that even though they couldn't estimate the price, it might not be small. The hero said that money should be spent and not saved. The man made a happy look and said that in that case, he would give the hero the thing. The man explained that he couldn't sell it, and since the hero knows how to use it, it could be his. The player said that in addition to this is that the hero is a strong man, and he would like to be friends with him. After such words, the hero realized that he did not want to let the man suffer. He put on the table the same pile of coins that he sold to the girl. The man was very amazed as the coins were worth more than 7 million. At that time, the protagonist was beyond happy, as he now had a top-quality tool. At that time, the appraiser and the mistress were watching the transaction of the protagonist in the observation room. They couldn't understand why the guy was buying an unappraised item for such a big money. The girl felt that the guy was only rank 1, but was able to unleash such a strong spirit. The girl was sure that the guy could conceal his aura, and was also good at appraising items. The fair was slowly coming to an end. The protagonist was immensely happy about his new purchases. At that time, an argument broke out, where a man was trying to buy an item for awakening spiritual power and consciousness. The players were yelling at the man, because he wanted to become a player so easily. The man promised $10 million for such an item, as long as there were no side effects. The player said it was a reasonable price, and yes, the group had the money. The protagonist remembered a girl from the quest who was related to this family. He decided it was not a coincidence. The protagonist decided to use his wine. He put her on the table and explained that drinking this wine is enough, and it is fashionable to awaken spiritual consciousness. The man started to consider the wine as he thought it was too simple. The hero made a serious look and said that if the man didn't believe him, he shouldn't do business with him. He was scared and said that he trusted the hero. After these words, he immediately handed over a check for $10 million and said that the hero can cash it at any time. The guy thanked the man for such a purchase. At that time, the girl stood on the roof and thought about the fact that her father did not take her to the fair. The girl thought about the hero and the fact that he never called her. At that time, the father turned to his daughter and said that he had bought something that would help her. He took out the wine, and the girl immediately recognized it, as the hero had a similar one. The girl began to think that the hero had sold such a valuable treasure. He opened the bottle, and a huge amount of energy started to come out of it. She was now certain that it was Brother Lin's wine. The girl began to drink this drink, after which her eyes began to shine with green light, and her body was covered with a green aura. She promised herself that she would be useful to the hero in the future. At that time, the protagonist found information about the girl. The protagonist thought that he should not take the game lightly. The protagonist thought that in theory there could be a hide-and-seek rule, and then the chance of survival becomes minimal. The hero knew that sooner or later he would have to fight the ghosts. The hero summoned the system. He was just a chuchit to rank 2. Now, because of the spiritual power, the system was much better at telling objects. The hero summoned his better weapons, one medium for attack, one medium for defense, and a higher quality weapon for control and healing. After a little while, the hero was summoned into the game again. Now the lad was fully prepared to embark on a path of new adventures and gain.